In this video, we're going to go through the extra help video for 5.3.4, which is the quadratic formula. And in the packet, this is on page 4, but you can also just do this in a notebook. So the quadratic formula, we want to apply to an actual scenario. So we are given a story problem, and we're going to use the quadratic formula to help us solve that problem. So this says a ball is thrown and travels upwards at 14 meters per second. And the path it takes is represented by the equation negative 5t squared plus 14t plus 3, where t is the time in seconds. How long does it take the ball to hit the ground? How far above the ground is the ball at the beginning? So the first thing that we need to figure out is like what actually is going on. And so the ball is being thrown. And sometimes if it's an actual like image I can conjure in my head, I'll sometimes like draw that really quick. So I don't have a ton of space here, but I'm going to draw just a little tiny picture right here. We have a person throwing a ball and it's hitting the ground. So this is the ground. And so that's the situation going on. We can agree that it looks like a quadratic. It looks like a parabola. And this is our equation. So now question number 1 says, how long does it take the ball to hit the ground? So over here, when are we going to hit the ground? And if it's talking about how long, it means I need to find out what t is. And if I need to find out what t is, that means that I need to do the quadratic formula. Or factor, but this is not 1, so it would be hard to factor. So question number 1, we are going to use the quadratic formula to find out what t is. So I'm going to start by labeling a, b, and c. So a is in front of t squared, so that's negative 5. B is in front of t, so that's 14. And c is the constant, so that's 3. And then I want to go ahead and plug it into our quadratic formula. And when I plug it in, I'm going to make sure that I plug in everything inside parentheses. So I get x equals, then I have a negative from the formula, and then my b is 14. Plus or minus, square root, b again, squared minus 4, and then I have a inside parentheses and c inside parentheses, all over 2 times a. So I just went through and plugged in my a, my b, and my c inside parentheses into my quadratic formula. And to be able to solve this, I can't type everything into a calculator, so I need to solve it in parts. I need to do this by itself, then this by itself, and then the bottom by itself. And when I do that, I get negative 14 plus or minus. This part I need to type into a calculator. So you can use the Google calculator, but I have my actual calculator as well. So I'm going to type in exactly as you have it written. So the square root, then parentheses 14 squared minus 4 parentheses negative 5 parentheses 3. So it should look exactly as you have it written on your paper. And we hit equals and we get 16. Remember, if you get a decimal, you want to round to 2 decimal places. And then on the bottom, we get 2 times negative 5, which is negative 10. So you basically take this huge equation, this huge formula, and you simplify it down to its tiny pieces, and now it's ready to be split into an addition problem and a subtraction problem. So we're going to split this into a plus and a minus. So for our plus, we get negative 14 plus 16. And then for our minus, we get negative 14 minus 16. And we need to figure out what each of these are. So in your calculator or in the Google calculator, remember you have to hit equals after the numerator. So I just type in negative 14 plus 16, hit equals first, then divide. So I get negative 0.2. And then over here, I get positive 3. Now remember, in a context, these are not our answers. These are not our answers. We need to actually answer the question. So question 1 was, how long does it take the ball to hit the ground? So I'm going to check each of my answers. So this one says it takes negative 0.2 seconds to hit the ground. Well, that doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to cross it out. We can't go back in time. But what about this one? This one says it takes 3 seconds to hit the ground. That does make sense, so that is my answer. So for question 1, we can say it takes 3 seconds to hit the ground. Takes 3 seconds to hit the ground. But then remember, that did not answer all my questions because this was question 1, but then it also said how far above the ground is the ball at the beginning. At the beginning should trigger you to think that this is the starting point, this is the y-intercept. So for question 2, if I'm looking for the y-intercept, I just need to look for the constant over here. And I can see that my constant is 3. And it's asking not for time, so it's not seconds, it's asking for distance. How far above the ground. So our distance unit is this m, which is meters. So we're going to say the ball is 3 meters above ground. And that makes sense. Like, even looking at my picture, you can see if you're throwing a ball, it needs to be off the ground. You're not going to lay on the ground with your hand touching the ground and then throw the ball from there. You're going to be standing. So it makes sense that the ball is a little bit above the ground to begin with. So the big things are, make sure that you label A, B, and C correctly, because then this work will all be wrong if you don't. Second thing is, make sure you simplify each part on its own before breaking it apart. And third, make sure that you relate back to the context when you get your answers. Make sure your answers make sense and use units to answer the question. So it takes 3 seconds to hit the ground and the ball is 3 meters above the ground at the start. I hope this helped.